Dialing back the clocks to 2014, Nvidia was on quite a bit of a roll with the 900 series of GPUs, including famous GPUs such as the 980 and so on. But about 2 years or so later, Nvidia would once again destroy the competition with the all-new 10 series of GPUs, including famous GPUs like the 1080, 1070, and so on. But today we're focusing on just one of the 10 series GPUs, and that is the famous 1060. It would become one of the most popular GPUs of all time, and maybe even the most popular GPU of all time, staying on the Steam hardware survey at the very top for upwards of over 4 years. Ladies and gentlemen, the 1060. Let's talk about it. Now we will be reviewing today the 3GB model of the 1060, which might struggle in today's games, but we'll see. So keep in mind, if you have a 6GB model of the 1060, it will perform slightly better. Now moving on to the specifications of this old beast of a GPU, they include 1152 shader cores, 72 TMUs, 84 ROPs, 3GB of VRAM as I said, might struggle in modern games but we'll see. The memory is GDDR5, all on a 192-bit bus. As for the clock speeds, we're running at 1500 MHz with a boost clock of 1708 MHz. Not that bad. Now, on to the part you're probably looking forward to. How does this beast hold up in games? First up in our tests of benchmarks was Cyberpunk 2077. It might not be the most hyped game anymore with GTA 6 right around the corner, but it's still a pretty damn demanding game. And on this older GPU, you can expect to see FPS around 45 at medium settings. This is with FSR set to the highest they can go at 1080p. Overall, I'm not sure if I should be super surprised at the performance, but it was still an okay showcasing from this old card, and it's certainly playable after about 30 minutes of gameplay. That's how I got the average FPS from. Lots of explosions, chasing cops, blowing up stuff, so it held up at pretty good FPS. Overall, maybe not the GPU to buy if you want to play this game primarily, but still, you'll get by fine. Not bad at all. Although get the 6GB model, you know, future-proofing kinda. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart was up next, and it's a game that absolutely pushed this GPU to its absolute limits, and then some. It's not really a GPU I think you should be playing a game like this on, because technically it is playable, and if you already have a 1060, then I guess if you really want to get the game, you can get by with that average FPS over 30, but when you go for the dimensional portals and everything in the game, even with an SSD, it's laggy, like spikes sometimes even going down into the 10s, as you can see here. Well, this part isn't even the portal, it's just a fast moving part, and those frames, they're not looking too good, so when there's a lot going on, it suffers. But overall, you can still get by, if you really want to. It's one of those things, some people will find 30s playable, some people won't. If you're one of those people that you want your FPS to be high in the 60s, you're not going to have a good time. And of course for the settings, everything was set to the possible lowest. 720p, lowest settings, FSR, maximum, all that. Overall, hey, it did it, but maybe not the best. Overall, it's doable. Returning back to smooth frames is GTA 5 Online, and I'm recording this one day before the GTA 6 trailer drops. So if you're watching this in the future, hello, it's a special time. Anyways, GTA 5 Online ran beautifully at the very high settings. AA set down just a little bit because there's no need to really keep that up, and at 1080p. Overall, from about 30 to 50 minutes of gameplay, you're going to see an average FPS of around 70 or so. I'm mainly stuck within the city, but you can even see FPS go up into the hundreds sometimes if you're out on the outskirts, out of the city. Overall, police chases, gunfights, all that, explosions, and the FPS never really dips too much. And it doesn't really surprise me because this GPU came out around when the game came out in 2015 on PC, so you're gonna have a beautiful time. If you primarily play GTA 5 or games like it, why not? Maybe if you're on a budget. Although the GPU is still getting on there a little bit, so maybe go for something newer. But hey, it works good. Not bad at all. Everybody's favorite esports title up next, Fortnite, and at the very highest epic settings, with DX12 API set on, we saw an average FPS of around 67 FPS. It was beautiful, pretty smooth, although I still would prefer slightly higher on a game like this. It's similar to like Counter-Strike, you just high refresh rates are better, or maybe you have something like a super high refresh rate monitor where you want more FPS anyways, then just dial the settings down just a little bit. It'll still look great, but you'll get those higher refresh rates too. Overall though, if you're fine with 60 or so, you'll still have beautiful visuals. Overall, beautiful stuff, although not surprising considering it's not the most demanding game out there. Good stuff. Minecraft up next with some of the most beautiful shaders I've probably ever used, aka the reimagined shaders. You know, with these heavily demanding shaders, we came out to a still respectable FPS average of around 46. Obviously stuff around fancy and all that, graphical settings wise, of course. And yeah, these shaders are something that really tax the GPU quite a bit. But when it comes to other games where I want a high refresh rate, Minecraft is something that I don't really mind if the FPS is slightly lower, as long as it looks beautiful. So if you're fine with that lower FPS, then go for the shaders. There's also plenty of other shaders out there that run a lot better, or of course if you want to run the game completely stock, you'll probably get like 400 FPS or like 600, so either way, shaders, lighter shaders, vanilla, really depends, up to you. But with these beautiful shaders, it taxes the GPU a lot, but still, it's completely playable, meaning you'll probably be able to run any type of shaders you want if you can run these ones. Overall, awesome stuff and looks beautiful. The other esports title up next, Valve's newest game, Counter-Strike 2, ran at a beautiful around the 70s or so in terms of FPS. This was at the high settings at 1080p, and overall, it does come down to the map you play. Something like the office level, you're going to average sometimes even the hundreds or so, and on something like the ancient level, it's going to be 50s, 60s or so. It just depends. Some maps are more demanding than others, but you're going to have a perfectly playable time overall. And also, as I mentioned earlier, CS is a game where you want higher refresh rates, so most people will keep the graphics down anyways. But if you're one of the people that do want to crank the settings up for some reason, you'll be able to perfectly fine. It's a great esports card, and if you want to get it for simple games like this, well, maybe not simple, but you get the point, it'll run them perfectly fine. Overall, great stuff. Another esports title was up next, and that was Apex Legends, another really popular one. And at the high to medium settings, we averaged out at around 104 FPS, which was super playable. It's a little bit laggy falling from the sky at the beginning, but other than that, FPS was beautiful. I'm super bad at the game, so I die right away, but other than that, after about 30 minutes of gameplay from previous stuff, my really horrible recording job dying right away, still, really good FPS. You'll have a perfectly fine time on this GPU. It's a really well optimized game. Not bad. As mentioned a while ago, this card is really good for the lighter games, and this is like the absolute epitome of that. The lightest game of them all, although kinda unoptimized sometimes, ROBLOX still on this card. You'll be able to power through absolutely any game at all, no matter what it is. Once again, I can't really give you a concrete FPS because there's just so many games on ROBLOX. You can't give an average FPS. There's just so much. But even from the super demanding ones to the easier to run games in Roblox, you'll be able to run it perfectly fine. If you're just playing like Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite, it's a perfect card. You'll run fine. Even not the 3GB model, because they're just lighter games overall. Not bad at all. The Robot Girl game up next, and as I say in the previous videos, it is an actually good optimized game. It runs really well, even on older cards. So at the medium settings at 1080p, we average out around the 60s or so, which might not seem super good, but still, it's a super modern game released in this year. Well, it's getting on to like a year old, but still, as of the making of this video, it's a year old. 2023 game. And it runs over 60 FPS most of the time. Only really dipping during like super heavy boss battles, but even out in like driving this car, killing these enemies in this like forested area of the road, FPS stays pretty good. So it's pretty impressive showcasing in a time where modern games coming out are really bad optimization wise. So once again, pretty damn good. If you want to go out and get this game and you have this card, you'll probably have a good time. But if you don't already have this card, go for something better. One of my favorite racing games up next, Dirt Rally. It's an older title, but it checks out. At the high settings at 1080p, we still see an absolutely beautiful FPS of 93 FPS. And for how old the game is, being from 2016, it still holds up in my opinion extremely well in terms of visuals. And it brings up the idea that if you're just playing older games, you're not maybe playing the latest games, the card like this can still hold up pretty well. Overall, Dirt Rally and probably all the Dirt Rally games that come after that, you'll have a perfectly fine time playing. Anything in the Dirt series, it can do well. Not bad at all. It looks beautiful. World's worst looking city up next, City Skylines, and it's a really demanding game. It's not as bad as City Skylines 2, which everyone's complaining about, but it's still pretty demanding. On this older card, at the low settings at 1080p, we average out around 55 FPS, which is pretty playable. Just make sure you don't zoom all the way in, because that kind of tanks the FPS, but just normally building at a decent aerial view, like zoomed out, it's pretty good. Although there still is lag spikes here and there, it does drop here and there. I don't know if it's unoptimized or just really demanding, but yeah, all this at low settings. Doesn't look the best, but I can get by. I know what doesn't look good is my city. But still impressive, a huge city. We're keeping a decent FPS, so if you want to play this game on this card, you can get by. Not bad. And my conclusion for this video, after going through these 11 games on this older card, is that I can say it's still a card that is capable of keeping up, but it is really showing its age, especially the 3GB VRAM model. Is it a card you should necessarily go out and buy? Maybe if you find a super good deal you can't pass up on, but at this point I'd recommend probably going for something like one of the RTX cards. Even something in the 20 series of RTX cards would do better than this thing, obviously. But if you have one of these laying around, maybe a friend needs a GPU, then they'll be able to use it perfectly fine. I've had a couple GPUs that my friends have loaned to me when I needed some, so if a friend is in need of a GPU and you have one laying around, it'll do perfectly fine. It's just not really a card you should probably go out and actively buy, unless once again you find a really good deal on it. Overall though, it did still show off itself really damn well in my opinion in some games. Cyberpunk was pretty impressive, Atomic Heart was impressive. It's just, although it's impressive, there's a lot better stuff out there, like the RTX cards and everything. So that's my conclusion. Probably shouldn't buy it, only if you have a really good deal. I hope you enjoyed this video. I have some cool stuff coming in the future. Not all just GPU videos, because I know that can get a bit stale. So I got some cool, maybe phone related videos, trying to browse the web on some super old phones, and kind of getting mad at myself. It's going to be a fun time. So I hope you stick around, and if you made it this far, thank you so much, and I won't keep here any longer. See ya in the next one.